USC already has 11 guys committed in their number one ranked class in the cycle of 2026. Chad Bowden also said USC is going to have the biggest class in USC history. Who's next? And how many more?
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC. It's part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, you can pick your platform. You're going to download this podcast, and it's going to be free, and I'm going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in this episode. Like I said, there are 11 guys who have put USC's class of 2026 in the pole position. We haven't reached spring camp yet. It's still early. But right now, USC has the number one recruiting class in the country. Just to remind everybody, my everydayers, you know who these 11 players are, but for maybe some new people on the block, these are the 11 guys who are verbally committed to USC's class of 2026. You've got linebacker Xavier Griffin, RJ Sermons at cornerback, Brandon Lockhart at cornerback, your quarterback with a Q in this class so far, Jonas Williams. And then you have defensive lineman Samodi Katawanga. You have running back Sean Alston. You have defensive lineman Braden Jones. And you also have defensive back Joshua Holland. Rounding them out, you have Myron Tron Baker, wide receiver, Madden Reardon, defensive back, and Andrew Williams, defensive lineman. That commitment list is going to get longer, much longer. And it's probably going to start getting longer sooner rather than later. I've been talking about recruiting a lot lately. I've been telling you about official visits, unofficial visits. Those things have been getting lined up. They're still lining up. So I mentioned to you I've gone over some of Chad Bowden's quotes. He met with the media earlier this week, and he laid some stuff out there, really good stuff, getting everybody jacked up, excited. One of the points he really focused in on was high school recruiting and how this is going to be USC's biggest recruiting class ever. Some of you might remember Lane Kiffin. He had a class of 31 that was going into the sanctions. It was all about get as many guys in the program as you can and then go into survival mode because you knew you were going to be docked 10 scholarships per class for the next 3. Well, slightly different this time. You can have up to 105 scholarship players. So with that in mind, we know that USC is going to be bringing in at least 30, if not more than 30 guys in this class. So who's going to fill out the balance of this recruiting class? I'm going to rattle off my guys just to get us to 30. I think this would keep USC with the number one class in the country, and it might be their best ever, depending on how you want to look at it subjectively. Again, depending on what you're looking for, I don't know, but when I start going over these names, and if USC was to secure all these guys, I don't think anybody would be upset. I think everyone would be pretty darn happy. So let's start. I think the 12th player. This would be maybe Trent Mosley, the wide receiver, who would say, you know what, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to play for the home school. For what it's worth, while I'm feeling so confident about Trent Mosley, he was on USC's campus Wednesday, March 5th. He was also at USC's Junior Day, the beginning of February. And when he left, I just want to remind everybody, this was his quote. I really enjoyed spending time with the coaches and hearing more about the vision. It feels like they are close to building something special, end quote. And then don't forget what his teammate and also a commit to USC, Samodi Katawanga, he said, yeah, I'm trying to get my boys, Trent Mosley and Talanola Ely, the linebacker. So there's a hint. I think Mosley will definitely be part of USC's class. So now we're up to 12 players. I'm going to list 5 guys right now. They're all from the same official visit 2-day. It's not really a weekend, but it's a 2-day period that they'll be on campus together. So far, it's a 2-day official visit group of 5 players. It's going to be Kinyi Pepe, Kobe's brother, Mark Bowman, the tight end, Talanola Ely, the linebacker, Brandon Arrington, the DB from San Diego, and then, of course, Tom, the defensive tackle from Mater Dei. So you add those 5 guys in. Now you're up to 17 in this class. I'm also feeling good about offensive tackle. His name is Cannon Smith, Denver, Colorado. Now you're at 18. Kelvin Obed, the offensive tackle from Idaho. And obviously you're going to take Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Diakonov, Ryder Lions, blindside protector, left tackle up there at Folsom. So now you're up to 20. Obviously, Ryder Lions, you want to bring them in this class. Now you have your 2 quarterbacks. It's going to be a tough pull, especially since you already have Husong Longstreet in the class of 2025. I mentioned Jonas Williams, class of 2026. Assuming Ryder Lions comes along. Now you're at 21 players. So now we've got to kind of balance everything out. If USC is going for a moonshot, one of the guys, you can say, you know what, let's just shoot for the moon. One of those guys is going to be wide receiver Chris Henry Jr., Mater Dei. Look, USC's in the game. He's making an official visit. Why not? It's 22. Back to the offensive line, you want to get Malachi Lee, the offensive lineman from Hawaii. If you want to get a receiver, if you can't get Mater Dei's Chris Henry Jr., you definitely want to get Caden Dixon Wyatt. So you're now at 24 players. Back to the O-line. Don't forget, locally, you got Sam Utu from Oulu. You've got Eason Tafa, the interior offensive lineman from Utah. Now we're up to 26. It's not going to take a lot to get there, I'm telling you. Back to the defensive line. What about Max Meyer from Loyola? Local Loyola High School, LA. You want to cherry pick? Let's go back to Tennessee. Let's go get edge player, Zach Groves. I'm not doing the running backs. Deshaun Rideau, Charter Oaks. Oaks Christian. So now we're up to 29. I have not forgot Vance Spafford, the wide receiver from Mission Viejo. Now you're at 30. Let's say you can't get Chris Henry. What about Booby Feaster, the guy from Houston, Texas? I take him. You want to really load up on the offensive line route? Go get Tucker Smith, the offensive line prospect from Arizona. Yeah. So imagine all that. And let's say USC really wants to, they want to secure that number 1 and they want to rub it in everybody's face. Well, here's the perfect place to start. Let's rub it in the state of Louisiana's face. Imagine USC going back-to-back years, taking the best player from Louisiana and their top defensive lineman. We know Jakeem Stewart was part of the 2025 class. What about the number 1 ranked defensive lineman, Richard Anderson? Yeah. Right now, he's committed to LSU. USC is still in the game, though. His lead recruiter, Eric Henderson, he's from the state of Louisiana. Obviously, he played a big role in getting Thanos, Jakeem Stewart, to leave the friendly confines and come out to LA. Tell you what, if USC can pull that off back-to-back years, USC will have the number 1 recruiting class. I don't care if it's number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, or 5. That class that I just rattled off for you, what's wrong with it? Who am I missing? Who did I leave off? I'm sure I left off somebody, right? There's so many guys out there. You got the defensive back that just reclassified, Haven Feeney. You got, who am I leaving off? Hit me up, guys. Hit me up in the comments section. If you're watching on YouTube, you know where to leave your comments. You know where to find me on social media. See it right there. So help me out. That's a class right now. You got 31, 32 guys. I like it. What do you think? Who would you add to get USC up to that 30 number and give USC the unquestionable number one class in the country? All right, I got a couple more segments to go here. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and the sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week, it's the Houston Cougars. There is no team in college basketball that more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's Houston team. Defensively, they lead the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second season in a row. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say, go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done so far to date. It's clear that Houston is out here ready to conquer the road ahead, and they're doing it with a lot of confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Now that we know who is going to be helping USC return to the top of the mountain going forward, I just went over USC's 2026 class, what I would hope it to be. Those are the guys that are going to continue to build the culture that Lincoln Riley and now Chad Bowden and the rest of the coaching staff are trying to build. So we get to look forward to all those guys making plays in the future, making history, becoming the next Trojan legend. But in this segment, I thought, you know what? It's the off season. Let's have a little fun. Let's take a look back at some of the best plays from last season, 2024. I have a list. And I know I missed a few. So I'm sure somebody out there has some other plays. And you know what, Mark? This was my favorite play. But check these out. I know the final record wasn't anything to write home about. I mean, they finished the season 7-6. Big win in the Las Vegas Bowl over Texas A&M. Nice comeback win. We'll talk about that in this segment. But regardless of the team's overall success, there were some great highlights, right? Some plays that really stood out. You're going to remember for a really long time, hopefully forever. Plays that you'll remember years from now. You're going to talk about with your Trojan family, and you'll start exaggerating. I caught a fish this big, that type of stuff. Obviously, I'm going to start with USC's big win against LSU. Remember that big old fist fight, the buildup heading into the season, heading out there in Las Vegas? Yep. USC was 2-0 against the mighty SEC. Well, in that game, who's going to forget the Kyron Hudson show? I mean, seriously. He had that one-hander across the middle of the field in the second quarter when the game was still tied up 0-0. And then later in the game, in the fourth quarter, he made another, I think it was one-handed along the sideline, and he took a vicious targeting shot. Yeah. He held on to the ball. I mean, no wonder Penn State wants him so bad. That play, though, by Kyron, that set up Woody Marks' game-winning touchdown run. Let's stick with the wide receivers. Kyle Ford. Remember that nasty stiff arm in that game against, what was it? I think it was Nebraska. He stiff armed a guy, and then he ran towards the corner of the end zone. And he really just kind of hurdled him, threw himself over the goal line for the touchdown. That was pretty special. The only other special play and this is just for sentimental reasons, obviously that game-winning touchdown catch in the Vegas Bowl. When you think about how much Kyle has endured through his time in college, the knee injuries, not feeling like he had a place at USC, taking himself over to UCLA for a year, sucking it up, apologizing, recognizing he made a mistake, coming back to USC, and then having that game-winning touchdown, dropping to his knees, the perfect way to end the season. I'm not sure if it's fair to call Woody Marks a poor man's Travis Dye, but he played with the same heart and soul as Travis. He was USC's first 1,000-yard rusher, going back to Ronald Jones in 2017. Remember that? But all of that aside, remember that play from Woody? USC was at Michigan. Remember the Kenneth Grant, the big defensive tackle? He picked up the loose ball, and he was running like he was on his way to the end zone. Woody Marks said, "Not so fast." He literally chased after him, ripped the ball out of his arms, and gave the ball back to USC. Huge play. That might be my favorite play of Woody Marks' short-lived Trojan career. What about that double ricochet pick six that Mason Cobb had against Wisconsin? That was kind of cool. Off the wide receiver, off of Jacoby Covington, right into Mason's waiting hands. He took it and ran. Pick six, touchdown. Highlight play. Enjoyed that. One of the few times that Quentin Joyner was actually featured, he had the highlight run of the season, without a doubt. It ended up being USC's longest run of the year. 75 yards. It was against Penn State. It was that fake end around with Zachariah Branch. Joyner kept it, rumbled, 75 yards, touchdown. USC had the lead. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Let's go back to defense. Remember Greedy Vance? Remember that game ender, that interception in the end zone against Nebraska? USC had to come back at home to win that game. They did. But Nebraska was driving to try and tie the score. It would have taken a two-pointer. Final score was 28-20. But again, Greedy intercepted the ball in the end zone, game over, ran right over to athletic director Jen Cohn, gave her a big hug. Right place, right time. I don't know how many players can say they've had a 3-touchdown game against Notre Dame. We know one player did it back in 1974. So 50 years later, Jacoby Lane said, "I can do 3." That 3-touchdown performance he had against Notre Dame, even though USC lost the game, pretty impressive. Like I said, I mentioned Kyle Ford earlier. Jaden Mayava, he really showed everyone he had that why his ceiling is so high and why he could be that difference maker, like he did against Texas A&M in the bowl game. Bunch of highlight plays that helped USC come back from 21 points down to win that game. Excuse me. Again, and it culminated with that throw from Jaden to Kyle Ford. Trojans, what about, let's go back earlier in the season with Jaden Mayava. Here was a great play. Again, it kind of said, it was like, all right, we need to see packages of him in the game. USC, Utah State, USC was in control of that game from Jump Street. Fourth quarter, Jaden's, he's in the game, scrambling around. All of a sudden, he finds a little seam, finds an opening. He ran like 30 yards for a 12-yard touchdown. But everybody's like, okay, I've seen that before. We can look forward to seeing much more of that during the season. Didn't happen. And I know that's been a point of discussion. It was throughout the season last year. Still talking a little bit about it now. What took so long for Coach Riley to make the quarterback adjustment? Why didn't he have packages for Jaden throughout the season? Anyways, we won't go too deep into that right now. I know I'm leaving something out. So again, those are just some plays off the top of my head. I was scrambling. I wrote them down, watching the USC basketball game against Washington, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. So stick around for that. Are there other highlight plays that I'm leaving out? I know there are. There's plenty of them. I can think of some great throws from Miller Moss. Great catches on defense. Hit me up. Recall your favorite plays from 2024. I know that the season didn't go the way everyone wanted it to. Still, there were times you were watching the USC football games, you were going, wow, that was special. You need to put that in the archive somewhere. Remember it. Go back and watch it over and over and over again. All right, let's do this. One more second. We're going to talk about men's basketball. They got one game left. And usually that one game left at the end of the season, it's against UCLA. So it's always appropriate to say, beat the Bruins. UCLA sucks. Like I said, men's hoops, they got one more regular season game left to play. And that's because they just had senior night at Galen Center. USC beat the Washington Huskies. They've owned the Huskies. This time they beat them 92-61. Senior night, which means you got one more game. They're at UCLA this weekend, Saturday, Pauley Pavilion. USC was actually playing for a lot. I know they haven't had the same type of success like their counterparts, the ladies of Troy, the women of Troy, but they fight. They play hard. They're doing what they can. So they were playing for some pride, right? They're still playing for that chance to play 5 games in the Big Ten tournament, because if they can play 5 and they can win 5, guess what? They're getting an automatic bid. They're going to get an automatic bid to the big dance. And by the way, they can do that. They'll win 20 games. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. They got the win though, and that's what was so important. It was a must-win game for the Must-Bus. So coming into the game, USC had lost 5 in a row. Against Washington, they had what, a 10-game winning streak. Now they have an 11-game winning streak. When USC opened conference play, it was in Seattle. They beat the Huskies by 24 points. They beat them by more this time. I'll tell you what, watching the game, I'm thinking, man, I wish we could find a way to get Rashawn Agee one more season. He's one of the seniors. Dude went off in USC's last game where they lost to Oregon up there in Eugene. He had 29 points and 14 rebounds. Then he also had 5 blocks. He picked up exactly where he left off. He had 13 points at halftime against the Huskies. He finished the game with 18 points, 5 rebounds. So again, really strong performance. It's the way he just let the offense flow. He was taking the three-pointer if it was there, but he was battling underneath. I think we could say Washington has a bigger front line. And he battles. He plays hard. He's the type of guy you want on your team one more year. So at halftime, USC had 47 points, right? I'll say this. Big Ten officiating, it's still trash, garbage. I understand the rule, but the ball was still in the player's hand when the red light went off, when the buzzer went off. The official said, well, I blew the whistle. Well, yeah, you say so. The ball was clearly in the shooter's hand. Anyways, the Husky made a 3-pointer at the buzzer, and he had a chance to make a 4-point play. My point is, Big Ten officiating, it's still garbage. It sucks. Terrible. This is something they need to work on during the offseason. The Pac-12 officiating that kind of migrated over, it's infected the Big Ten. It's got a virus. So again, USC, they had 47 points at halftime. They led by 12. Desmond Claude, he had 7 assists in the first half. Had a nice bounce-back game. I'll tell you what, it helps a lot when the guys who are wide open are making their shots. Desmond, when he wasn't able to get a shot off in the paint, he would kick it out to the open guys, and they were draining the threes. Against Washington, Claude actually recorded his first double-double of the season and his first points and assist double-double of his career. So in the past, he's probably had points and rebounds. In his final home game as a Trojan, he had a game-high 11 assists, and he also scored 25 points. Great bounce-back game. Harrison Hornery, the lone man, the last man standing. Well, it was great to see him finally get in the game. USC was up big. He made USC's 15th, you heard me correctly, 1-5, 15th three-pointer of the game. That's the most a USC team has made since 2018. So big win for USC, gives them some momentum heading into Pauley Pavilion this Saturday. USC can get that win. Right now, I think they locked up a spot in the tournament. It's going to be really difficult for them to fall out of it, even if they lost at UCLA on Saturday. Still, you know what? Let's go get that win, right? Let's play let's put a little damper on UCLA's season. They're having a better basketball season than they usually do for whatever reason. But yeah, let's split this one. Have a feel-good game going into the Big Ten tournament. Have UCLA feeling like crap going into the conference tourney. I mentioned Harrison Hornery, last man standing. He wanted to stay with the program when Eric Musselman came in. Everybody else that's on scholarship transfers. He hung around. He wanted to do whatever he could to help this program. That's called teamwork. He is a true Trojan. Anyways, I thought it was two things that kind of disappointed me. Like I said, USC was up huge late in the game. 5 minutes left. I would have inserted him then. But you saw him get off the bench with about 3.5 minutes. And then there was a bunch of action. There was no whistle. So he didn't get in for there was 2 minutes left. He had a lot of family and friends there in town from Australia. I'm just saying it would have been nice had he gotten a little bit more action. That's all. And it was kind of cool, a little surreal moment at the end of the game, watching him dribble the clock out. Again, last man standing. You can see him. He was kind of looking around the arena, soaking it all in, taking in every last memory. So the other thing that disappointed me, but I don't know why. At this point, I shouldn't be upset about it, but I still get upset about it. The overall lack of fan support. I get it. They didn't have the season they wanted to, but it was senior night. They say there were 5,800 fans in the arena. I don't know. You look at it and you're like, who's counting? So, Coach Musselman wanted everybody to stick around after the game to do senior appreciation. Why? Why do it that way? It's late. It's a weeknight. It's raining. USC can do more to market their basketball program. Put the same energy into basketball that you're putting into football. It'll make a difference. I promise. So there you go. USC, they close out their season at home with a big win. They now have 15 on the season, regular season. They're going into UCLA. Get that one. You're now at 16. Go make the magic happen in the Big Ten Conference tournament. All right. Covered a lot of info here on the show. I'll be back again tomorrow. We'll have more. I'll have my Friday rant. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.